Hey, what up guys? It's the Box Bandits coming in with my first deck tech video, and today we're going to be doing a deck tech on Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. This is the new art from the Commander Masters set that just dropped, 2023. So excited, let's get going. So the way I do my deck techs is really simple. I go ahead and grab the mana base. So we got our 33 lands. 30 of those are going to be basics. We have one Maze of Ith that taps attackers that are coming in for big damage. We also have an Evolving Wilds to get a basic, and then one fetch land, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. So that's gonna make all of our lands and everybody else's lands for us. Cool. And then basic land ramps. So we have some mana dorks, which we'll be seeing as we go through. Some cost reductions that you see here, and also here as well. And yeah, then we'll go through the mechanics of the whole deck and how that should operate. So let's get started. Selvala says whenever, I don't know if you guys can see that. There we go. Maybe a little better there. The foiling is crazy. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. And I can pay a green and tap it and add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So this effect here is going to only affect me, where I get the mana for greatest power. But this effect up here is a triggered ability, a static ability that happens for anybody that has the greatest creature power enter the battlefield. So it is a little group huggy in that fashion. People get to draw cards if their creatures are bigger than mine, which is what we'll get to next. And the whole mechanic of this deck is to slowly but surely get creatures with bigger powers on the battlefield and be able to tap Selvala for more mana than what she already tapped for, which is 2. So Selvala is an elf, so I figured might as well go a little elf ball, and then later on come in super hot with some big creatures, Hydras that synergize with each other, with a couple of different win cons on a stick as well. So starting here, we'll start with our mana curve. What we do here is we have our mana curve 1 through 7 plus, and then going down we have mana value 1 permanents or creatures, then we have mana value 1 permanents, then we have mana value 1 instant and sorceries, and then so on and so forth like a graph. And this is a true mana curve based on card type and also cost. So let's get started. So we will go ahead and grab our 1-drops here. Okay, so we have an Elvish Mystic, nice mana dork, Arbor Elf, Finhorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, and we have a Haywire Mite, which is a 1-cost creature. When it dies, you gain 2 life, and I can pay a green and sacrifice it without tapping it. Note, exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. Carpet of Flowers, more ramp. Concordant Crossroads gives everything haste, including everybody else's stuff. We have a Hardened Scales. Autumn's Veil, spells you control can't be countered by blue or black spells this turn, and creatures you control can't be targets of blue or black spells this turn. We have a Fog, just in case. Emerald Charm, choose one, destroy target or untap target permanent. Second one is destroy target non-aura enchantment, and the third one is target creature loses flying until the end of turn. And then we have a buff. It's a 1-drop green instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains reach until the end of turn. Also untap it. So that's really relevant for Selvala. Ultimately, we're going to net 2 mana on that. Cool. So those are our 1-drops there. And as you can see, I don't have Soul Rings or Wayfarer's Baubles or Wild Growths or anything of that sort, because going with the elf strategy and a creature strategy, what I want to do is I want to avoid having anything that doesn't synergize with my commander. So an artifact being cast when Selvala is out doesn't do anything. However, a 3-drop or a 4-drop may be able to affect Selvala to be able to draw a card and also be able to tap for a green as well, or more green mana as well. So we're going with complete mana dorks here, and some instant and sorceries that grab us some lands. So for instance, we have a Rampant Growth, 2-drop, really good. Emerald Medallion, green spells cost 1 less. Swiftfoot Boots to give Selvala haste. Lightning Greaves for the same thing. Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. It's a legendary artifact. If one or more counters be put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1 are put on. It's a 2-drop. Pollinated Druid. It's an elf. When it ETBs, I can put a counter on target creature. Elvish Vanguard. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Elvish Vanguard. Now note that counts every elf, not just yours. Everybody's elves. Leaf Crown Visionary. Other elves get +1/+1. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay 1 green. If you do, draw a card. Devoted Druid, my favorite mana dork ever. Tap for a green, then I can put a -1 counter on Devoted Druid and untap it. Elvish Warmaster. Whenever one or more other elves enter the battlefield, create a 1/1 green elf creature token. This only triggers once per turn. Gala Greeters. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. It is an elf druid. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Put a 1/1 counter on Gala Greeters. Create a tap treasure token, or you gain 2 life. So some pretty good 2-drops there. What that's going to do is the synergy there is going to allow me to get the effects from Selvala as fast as possible. So we have Azuri Renegade Leader. Super cool card. It's a 3-drop 2/2 elf warrior. I can pay green and regenerate another target elf. You can also pay 5 and elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until the end of turn. We have Reclamation Sage. Destroys target artifact or enchantment. Imperious Perfect is a good 3-drop. Other elves get +1/+1 until the end of turn. Galanara, Caller of the Wirewood. I can tap it, add a green. When I spend this mana to cast a spell with converted mana 6 or greater, draw a card. So that's good in the late game. We have Yisan, pay 2 and a green, put a verse counter. Search your library for a green creature card, mana value equal to the verse counters. Colossal Majesty. That is beginning of your upkeep. If you control a creature of power 4 or greater, draw a card. It's really good. 3-drop Rona's Monument. Green creature spells cost 1 less. Whenever you cast a green creature spell, target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample until the end of turn. So if I have this out and play 2 green creatures, I give Selvala +4/+4. All of a sudden, she taps for 6 mana with a cost reduction. I have a 2-drop Archnogenesis. Create X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. And then we have some basic removal. Beast Within, destroy target permanent. Hunter's Insight, choose target creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. And then we have the free Fog, Obscuring Haze, in all of its beautiful glory. Technically, it is technically a 3-drop, but hopefully our commander's out and we'll be able to cast this for free. So moving on to 4-drops. We have an enchantment, Guardian Project. Basically, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, if it doesn't have the same name as any other creature I have, I draw a card. So that's everything in Commander. Mostly. Toski. Everybody knows Toski. Indestructible 1/1. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Renata, Called to the Hunt. Power is equal to my devotion to green. 3 defense. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Canopy Tactician. It's a 4-drop. Elf Warrior. Other elves get +1/+1, and it also taps for 3 green. List Alana Huntmaster. Whenever you play an elf spell, you may put a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token into play. Really good card. Wirewood Channeler. It's a 4-drop elf druid. Tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of elves on the battlefield. So that counts everybody's elves. Immaculate Magistrate. So good. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature for each elf you control. So that's really good for Selvala. Ivy Lane Denizen. Whenever a green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So once again, buffing Selvala. When this enters the battlefield, draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Gamekeeper. This is one of my pet cards. So this is not something you have to add, but this is just something that I love this card. This is one of my favorite effects in the whole game. And so we'll go ahead and read it. It's a 4-drop, 2/2 green elf creature. When Gamekeeper dies, you may exile it. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and put all other cards revealed this way into your graveyard. So it's busted. I would say that, well, 33% of my deck is lands. And I would say that around another 33% of that would be creatures. So 1/3 chance I'm, 1 in 3 cards I'm getting a creature. And because of the way that we're building this deck, like I showed you guys, whatever creature I get is probably going to synergize with whatever else I got going on. Or something that's just really good, like Soul of the Harvest or Seaborn Muse, which is where we're going next. So it's just really good. You may lose cards from them going into the graveyard, but we'll talk about that here in a minute and why that doesn't matter. Seaborn Muse, amazing. 5-drop, untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap. Defiler of Vigor, 5-drop. It's a trample 6/6. As an additional cast that costs green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost green less to cast for each if you pay life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of green mana you pay. And then, whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. 5-drop. When this guy enters the battlefield, I create a 3/3 colorless artifact creature golem. And whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on that and the golem. So whenever somebody's cracking treasures, with the new graveyard rule with tokens, any artifact that hits the graveyard or any token that gets sacrificed, food tokens, clue tokens, treasure tokens, you're getting counters on this and the golem. And with all of our effects that double stuff, which is what we got here, we have a doubling season. If you create 1 or more tokens, create twice that many instead. Put 1 or more counters on there, put twice that many instead. Gauntlet of Power. It's a 5-drop artifact. Choose a color. When it ETBs, creatures of the chosen color get +1/+1. Whenever a basic land is tapped for mana of the chosen color, its controller adds an additional mana of that color. We have Garruk. Only Planeswalker in this deck. I'll show you why. Garruk Primal Hunter. It's a 5-drop Planeswalker, +1, create a 3/3 beast creature token. -3, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. -6, create a 6/6 worm green creature token for each land you control. So Garruk, when I'm able to get, in the late game, turn 5, by this point Selvala should be at least 4 or 5 power. I might have some other creatures that have more power than that. Maybe I got a Hydra out quick earlier in the early game that's been doubling counters on itself somehow or something, and it's a big guy. I have -3, draw a bunch of cards. You know the rest. And then we have Shamanic Revelation. This is a sorcery. Draw a card for each creature you control. And then it has Ferocious. You gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So, yeah, just some good stuff. So now we're getting to the 6-drops. As you can see, as we go higher in the mana, my stacks are getting a little bit smaller until we get over here, which is our game plan here. So for our 6-drops, we have Soul of the Harvest. It's a elemental creature with trample. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. So just some late game card draw. Yeah, we have a 6-drop Elf Mutant that taps for 3 green and also has Forest Cycling. So as you can see, even this 6-drop is an elf still. This 6-drop is also an elf. When this enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters, where X is the number of all cards in all players' hands. So casting a spell that draws you, 20 cards, and then playing this is incredible. Get a lot of cards. This is a huge creature at that point. Selvala is going to allow you to draw a card when he ETBs. It's just, literally, this card is built for Selvala. Rikshard's Experience. It's a sorcery. Draw cards equal to the greatest power creatures you control, and I may cast a spell of mana value 5 or less from a hand without paying its mana cost. So, now we'll move to our late game gameplay bombs. So when I play this deck, I usually tell people this is an elf tribal that morphs into Hydras, and people have no idea what I'm talking about until it happens, because they think I'm doing like a morph connect mechanic or something. But anyway, so as you can see, we have all of these elves that synergize with each other, getting value from Selvala, drawing a bunch of cards, synergizing off each other, right? Now we're getting into the late game win aspect of the game, and here we go. We're going to start with the Wildwood Scourge. It's a Hydra. When it enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, whenever one or more counters are put on a non-Hydra creature you control, put a 1/1 counter on Wildwood Scourge. So use that Hydra there. And then we have Voracious Hydra. It's X green. Enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. And when Voracious Hydra enters the battlefield, choose one, double the number of counters on it, or it fights target creature you don't control. A little bit of removal, a little bit of bigger creature if you want. Mistcutter Hydra, X and a green, can't be countered, haste, protection from blue. Mistcutter Hydra enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. Hungering Hydra enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. X and a green. Hungering Hydra can't be blocked by more than one creature, and whenever Hungering Hydra is dealt damage, that many 1/1 counters are put on it. Primordial Hydra. This Hydra is sweet. X and 2 green. Hydra. Primordial Hydra enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of counters on Primordial Hydra. Primordial Hydra has trample as long as it has 10 or more counters. Vastwood Hydra. Same thing. X2 green enters with X 1/1 counters on it. When it dies, you can distribute a number of 1/1 counters equal to the number of 1/1 counters on Vastwood Hydra among any number of creatures I control. Lifeblood X3 green Hydra with trample. Enters with X 1/1 counters on it. When it dies, gain life equal to its power. And moving away from Hydras for a sec, we have a Stonefoot Chieftain, which is a 8-drop Centaur Warrior, trample indestructible. When another creature you control attacks, it gains trample and indestructible until the end of turn. So that counts all your creatures. Last March of the Ents. This is our only sorcery that costs a lot. It's an 8-drop sorcery that can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control, then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So this isn't super great with Hydras, but as you can see, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Hydras to help us win the game. And then we have one of my other pet cards, which is not something you have to add in here, but it's just really good. Ancient Bronze Dragon. It's a 7-drop, 7/7 flying dragon, Elder Dragon, and whenever this dragon deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. When you do, put X 1/1 counters on each of up to 2 target creatures, where X is the result. So we'll keep that over here with the Hydras, actually, which is, I'll show you here in a minute. And then we have the win on a stick, Craterhoof. It's an 8-drop with haste. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X till the end of the turn, where X is the number of creatures I control. So our win con there, one of them. So the reason why I spread these out here is because I would like to talk about the support that I have in this deck that is going to synergize with one another as I go and play the game. So what we 1/1 counter, and then another 1/1 counter. So as you can see, I'm pulling these cards out. All these cards I'm pulling out have something to do with 1/1 counters. Now this isn't a mechanic that I decided to make, or this isn't something that I was like, hey, let's make a 1/1 counter deck. What happened is when you brew decks and you're going through all your cards, you start realizing some things, and next thing you know, you have a whole separate synergy going on that just completely adds to whatever else, what you're trying to do in your deck. So for me, all I'm trying to do is just play small creatures that get bigger over time to trigger Selvala so I can tap it for mana and draw cards. Where later on I can then, you know, swing out. I can have target creature fight or deal damage to somebody. You know, there's different ways that I can do that, but yeah, it's just so here we go. So I was able to pull. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 effects that when something gets a counter, it gets double or it gets that many +1 effects on the battlefield at any given time. So yeah, so whenever these Hydras enter the battlefield, I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways that I can, 6 different cards that could be on the battlefield with all different costs. So it could be early game, it could be, you know, late game, it could be mid game, you know, but sooner or later I should have one of these cards out before I get these Hydras out, which is going to just go off with any one of these Hydras. And then being able to draw a bunch of cards, play more Hydras, tapping Selvala for a bunch of mana to continue on in order to get to what you need to win the game. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's the deck tech. It's really simply made. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to leave comments. You know, and yeah, so this is not a super budget friendly deck, but it's also not super expensive. So I was able to build this deck for just under $250. All the cards in here are real, and yeah, it can play any power level 8 table, no problem, and possibly even higher if I if I get the right turn 1 card draw. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your guys' time. Peace out.